Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a Blazecasting presentation, bringing you guys a game for the Dota 2. This is the second iteration of the Staff Cup tournament. So we are going to be looking at these different teams from different organizations here, pretty much the behind-the-scenes people, the employees that you generally don't get to see in the spotlight very much. But in this case here, we're going to see a couple of different groups going up against one another. It does list as Crab Team versus DotaBro right here, but it's actually going to be DotaBro's organization going up against the European managers. So a lot of different individuals here, and I am joined by my co-caster Rainmaker. How's it going, man?
Oh, it's going pretty good. I'm really excited to see these games. Hopefully we get to see some, awesome gameplay from, again, like these are Dota players, right? And like they spend all of their time giving to the community, organizing these big events that we love, and I'm just excited to kind of see them in the spotlight and, also see how they play, because you're always curious when you see someone behind the scenes.
Very true, very true, very true. So that is pretty much what we're looking at here, is a lot of people that don't get a lot of time in the spotlight. We have seen a little bit of action from, I believe it's Professor Dr. Martin was his screen name, and a couple of kind of semi-pro teams. So he has been around the scene, as well as a couple of people on the European managers. Like Markoloff is actually a pretty renowned CS 1.6 sniper player, so he plays a role where like you do long-range reflex kind of aspect of that, and he actually was looking to move into Dota 2, but apparently didn't get the opportunity to do so. So that's an interesting kind of a wild card there that has a lot of potential, just being such a competitive gamer and very used to that very aggressive scene. And I mean, a couple of other people, the Break the Desk play is pretty well known in his association with Moscow 5 and stuff like that, but yeah, it's going to be one way or another. A lot of different interesting individuals. I have worked a little bit with Mikey Licious and Fear SC and stuff like that, and I'm curious to see how they perform on the battlefield. But as far as the draft goes, the bans are, I was going to say pretty standard, but right off the bat we do see Pudge getting banned out, which is a little bit unorthodox, and in turn DotaBro banning out the sniper, which might just be a little bit of a joke, as like Markoloff, like I said, he plays in CS, plays the sniper, the AWP was like his best thing, so maybe just a little bit of a joke ban there, but opens up the Knicks and a lot of other options. So what do you think so far?
I mean, while it, I'm going to say that Sniper is not the most serious of bans, it does open up, it does allow them to have a lot of possibilities. They can go into a Darkseer, they can go into a Coddle. Basically, by going and banning what we'd consider kind of a joke hero, it allows them to go and pick into like a lot of the more competitive heroes. I think also from the EU managers, picking up the Nyx Assassin just goes and solidifies them, a lot of, what's the word I'm looking for? Gives him a lot of presence in the mid-game. Once that Nyx hit level 6, he's like a self-hating support. He will find the supports on the other team and brutally murder them for you. And that is the kind of impact you can get out of almost no other support in the game.
Sure.
So very strong right now, and like it's not impossible that we'll see him run as God in that solo mid position. But there is the Magnus, there is the Darkseer, a lot of AoE presence on the DotaBro team.
Yeah.
So kind of tipping their hand a little bit, but let's see if they're going to be able to go into something slightly different after this.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting there. Usually you don't see both of them picked up, as they kind of perform the same role of clumping up the opposition and just putting out a lot of damage and potentially disable them in terms of Magnus right there. So putting them together, they kind of have the same idea in mind, but it opens up a world of potential of pretty much Crab Team or European managers, however you want to phrase them. They can't be out of position in any way, shape, or form, because the vacuum pulling into reverse polarity, it's just going to put them in a really bad spot where long duration disables really come into play, and it's going to be very difficult to work against. The laning phase might be alright. Magnus will probably be on the mid, Darkseer on the off lane with that Iron Shell presence and survivability from the Surge, but in general, it's when they transition in towards teamfight that they're going to really hit their stride there. So they're probably going to build, like you said, around that, most likely, building up some AoE carries, maybe a Shadow Fiend, maybe a Sven or Gyrocopter, anything like that. Plenty of different options there, but right off the bat, I gotta say that the Nyx was a really good pick from the European managers. Starting off with that, the Spike Carapace will nullify a lot of the AoE presence, and we do see some interesting picks coming up following that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the Luna pick here, it just goes and solidifies their lanes a little bit. Luna's one of those great heroes because not only just due to Lunar Blessing, she offers your team a lot of teamfight in the early game and allows you to push very aggressively as well. The bonus damage goes and takes your supports really to the next level and allows them to very easily participate in those pushes. Just the extra damage allows you to chip away those towers very well. However, because of her glaives and just, the rest of her kit, she can go very aggressively into the late game and just pump out a ton of damage. All three of the heroes on Crab Team are basically, they have a lot of mid-game presence, and they can follow that up into a very strong late game.
Sure enough, sure enough. So Keeper Light is going to be the follow-up pick for DotaBro right here, and they're going to be trying to do exactly what we were kind of talking about before. Once they put them in a position where they are all clumped up and willing to take damage, Keeper of Light is going to be the one that dishes that out. He's going to go in with that Illuminate and just do huge amounts of damage. I mean, if you get a fully charged Illuminate off during a Magnus ultimate, you're going to be looking at about 500 magical damage that will be mitigated, but then you can follow that up with his, when he goes into spirit form, dropping off that blinding light, which will negate a lot of Luna's potential damage until she picks up a BKB. So kind of following that up, disable after disable. I mean, yeah, they have the big hard stun to lock them down for the damage, but even if you don't finish them off, you still have a good few seconds with that blinding light on the board. That'll make everything work out really, really nicely until, again, the BKB or the Manta style is picked up by Luna, which of course will negate some of that benefit there. But I gotta say, they're putting themselves much more towards the, I guess, late game, because of the fact that they don't really have as much presence when they're low levels. When Magnus is level 3, Darkseer the same, they really can't do that much in early skirmishes, whereas Crab Team has been developing a lineup that will really work around in any circumstance. Their early presence, team fight, whatever they need, it's prominent throughout all facets of the game.
Yeah, I mean, on Crab Team they have very flexible heroes, but I think as soon as it gets to level 6, they're going to need to play a little bit more defensively, and that's not something you anticipate when you pick up heroes like Nyx, like Luna. So just the Keeper of the Light also helps against the pushing coming out from Crab Team, and I'm very curious to see how Crab Team will follow up on this. Right now we need to see because generally speaking the Rubik will be going on the support with the Luna and the Nyx Assassin, and I'm curious to see what they're going to be looking for their offlane and their solo mid. I think this Bounty Hunter ban coming out from the DotaBro team was spot on. An extra Invis hero, an extra hero that can pressure and kind of build momentum in the mid game could be a little bit too back-breaking for them to handle. And the other good question is, what's the second support for the DotaBro team going to be? With a team like with Magnus, Darkseer, and Keeper of the Light, I would honestly not be too surprised to see an Earthshaker. Just because the Keeper of the Light can Chakra Magic to keep his mana up in the early game, which is probably Earthshaker's biggest weakness. You know, he's kind of that one fissure and done type hero. And beyond that, oh wow, good Lina. Yeah, the other one could be Lina, just because it's additional AoE.
Yeah, well, what we are seeing picked up really, really quickly is Lina and Klinks drafted up for the final lineup. Like you said, there's a lot of good offlaner bans taken off the board, the Bounty Hunter and the Lone Druid, but they're going to actually pick up the Klinks instead and utilize him in that facet there. And of course, the Lina works very well with Rubik, or she could go on the mid lane. I mean, it really depends on how they want to shape it up, but she can go in many different lanes. She's very flexible in that regard, supportive or as a core hero. But right now, DotaBro, I would actually say their best support option in my mind would be the Jakiro, just because of all that sustained time period in one little spot with the Stormbolt now to follow that up, and of course the Ice Path. It really sets them up for a lot of Macropyre damage potential, and that just really synergizes with their lineup so far. It also gives them a much needed disable in the laning phase, because the Stormbolt does help out quite a bit, but Caudle really, he's not going to get the mana leak early, and it's not going to be very relevant as far as setting up kills early on. So although he has much more presence later on, and actually has probably one of the best level 1 nukes with that Illuminate, he needs some disable to set it up, and I think Jakiro or Twin-Headed Dragon would be the most appropriate there. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. A lot of stuns on the board, and we'll have to see how it shapes up. But they go with the Disruptor.
Oh wow, Disruptor.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's actually a really good pick there, because just the storm coming out from the Disruptor, that silence is going to be instrumental in going and keeping these heroes on Crab Team down. And you know, he has perfect setup for the kinetic field, even at level 1 from that Darkseer. Right, just vacuuming them in, the Stormbolt setting it up, and that just, you know, makes your Illuminates really a lot better. It makes your Magnus ults a lot better, so kind of working in both ways, but that is not a direct stun for the laning phase. So I'm curious to see, you know, how they'll do it. Also, Disruptor basically means you can't very well aggressively tri-lane unless you do something like Empire does, and that's a build where you end up maxing your nuke and your kinetic field, and I'm not sure how strong that will be against this team, because they would be going against a pretty good tri-lane, and it just doesn't seem that fantastic.
Alright, going back on into it. Yeah, sorry about whatever happened on there. Pretty much we were looking at a situation where they could hear what we were saying in voice by accident. I think it was just a setting in the lobby or whatever, but just to make sure that if anybody's spectating, they can also hear us in game. We just did a quick remake there, and it's an all-pick phase, so you can't see at the top, but they've selected now the exact same heroes, and as soon as the time ticks on down, 30 seconds, we'll be back in the game. But so, Rain, how do you feel about these picks so far? What do you kind of think about the lineup here?
Yeah, I mean, I feel that basically DotaBro's the DotaBro team, has a lineup that's going to be really, really strong at like 25 to maybe like 35, even 40 minutes. But once it gets past that, the Luna's going to take over. And beyond that, also the, I believe it's the European managers, also known as Crab Team, was what the tag they were going under. They're also going to be really strong in the mid game as well, and they have this Luna to kind of fall back on in the late game. If you look at the heroes, right, we discussed the great ban from the DotaBro team, banning out the Bounty Hunter, but the Clink serves a similar purpose in just pressuring the supports, you know, pressuring this Coddle, the Disruptor to buy a lot of sentries to kind of delay their items, force them to tank up a bit. So there's going to be a lot of pressure applied to the DotaBro team in the mid game, and that's when they need to go and kill. So I feel it's going to be tough for them. They need to force fights, force objectives, towers, Roshan, kind of get the gold advantage that way and try to end the game before the Sven is just not able to carry against the Luna anymore.
Sure enough, sure enough. So as far as the laning phase go, we're kind of seeing a little bit of the same thing happening on both sides here. Both of them are going for the aggressive tri-lane. It's going to end up being a 3 versus 1 situation, presumably. Definitely looking at the Darkseer going on the solo safe lane here. Looking for a Soul Ring Rush. Thinks he'll have an easy time going up against Clinks here, but might actually have a little bit more than he expects. Biting off more than he can chew. We'll have to see if he can survive effectively. I mean, this Tier 1 tower is a very defensible position because you can juke in underneath that tree line and you can get effective TPs coming in from different individuals, but even if they TP on in, what can Disruptor really do? Can it field them in? You can get some kills for your trouble by sticking them on the tower and locking them down from that position, but as far as actually like preventing them from bringing somebody down, I don't see it happening. If they get their disables off the Telekinesis, Light Strike Array, and Lucent Beam, it's going to be a lot of damage one way or another, but I'm more interested to see this mid matchup here. We're going to see Martin presumably going up against the Clinks here. You have Nixus going for a mid build with 360 gold stored up. He wants that bottle fast. And it's going to be kind of an interesting matchup between the two.
Yeah, I think, I mean, the Magnus will have the advantages in this matchup just due to the fact that he can just Bottle Crow and keep spamming that Shockwave, pushing the lane back and just controlling the runes that way. However, you know, this is going to get Nyx those really critical levels. And if he's able to, he's basically going to win this lane back just by, you know, picking up as much CS as he can and very heavily pressuring the side lanes. And when it comes to the side lanes, I do feel that the Dire has the advantage in their aggressive tri-lane, because while you know, generally speaking, this Darkseer is one of the best, you know, offlaners, and he's a great solo laner as well. With these three heroes, they can constantly pull the wave back, and Luna is going to be very, very good at keeping the Darkseer level 1. A little bit of a mistake there, not able to get the deny off, but if they just, you know, force him back, keep denying very well, they'll be able to keep him at level 1 or 2 for quite a long time. And until he gets that level 3, really, with that rank 2 Ion Shell, he's not going to be that effective. Meanwhile, the Clinks is going to be able to soak up experience quite a bit easier, as there are no sentries on the Radiant lineup.
So yeah, it's going to be just pretty much making that invisibility a bit of immunity right there. I mean, yeah, you can trap him with Kinetic Field and make sure he's in that position, but other than Illuminate, you're not going to get too much off there. And right now, Coddle is kind of at a low experience value of himself, sitting at 126 out of 200. It's going to be a little while before he gets that Chakra Magic to rank 2, and later on, more importantly, rank 1, and then more importantly, rank 2, to make sure they can sustain the mana on the Sven as well as himself. But anyways, like you said, no sentry boards, but I do like their Observer Ward placement here, making sure that they can kind of try to keep tabs on this camp here. I'm presuming that's going to block it. I haven't seen that ward used very much competitively, but should be as effective as they need it to be. Same thing with the rune wards, controlling the top rune whilst Dire controls the bottom. So we do have a little bit of spike issues, but it shouldn't be permeating for too much longer. Beyond that, there is a nice blocking ward right here, which will make sure that Darkseer can't pull if that would be his objective, but we don't generally see that when there's only one hero on the lane. Instead, we're actually seeing Lina looking to stack. No, there's no way that's going to be able to stack just based on the creep positioning, so a little bit too late on that, and actually kind of getting caught out a little bit, but DotaBro, Impreve will not be able to do too much here with the Light Strike Array locking down. Going to get a little bit of harassment in, but not too much beyond that. Now, as far as the bottles go, Inmate has already drank through his entire bottle, while Magnus just has his on the way right now. So we can see in the last hits, Nyx is just leading by just a little bit, but that small margin is allowing him to have a little bit more control there, with the fact that Magnus won't be able to sip his full bottle.
You know, Magnus actually got a little bit lucky there. With that top rune, he was able to pick up a regen, and, you know, that was after the Nyx basically bullied him out of lane. So a little bit of, you know, luck coming out from the Magnus side, or perhaps he just saw the regen a little bit early and decided to trade aggressively. Either way, he does have his bottle. No, is he bottle crown?
Nyx
yeah,
is.
he's just sending his bottle back.
Okay.
No, the Magnus is as well.
Cool.
just picked up that DD and just sent the bottle back. And here's where the shockwave spam becomes really irritating. He's got level 2, and he's just going to keep pushing the wave back. No crow up for him, though, and that's going to be a little bit tricky. One good thing about an aggressive tri-lane with Keeper of the Light from the Radiant side, so the Radiant is tri-laning top. They can go and farm this big camp. They can just stack and blast down this big camp, and that's going to be pretty crucial levels for both the Disruptor and the Keeper of the Light. I'm pretty surprised they've not been doing that already, because the Sven is, he's doing about as well as he can do against this Lynx. They forced him back, and just getting additional levels on your supports that way is pretty critical, especially when you have a level-hungry support like Disruptor.
How do you feel about as far as like using this creep pull right here, breaking down the trees and utilizing that camp to try to pull back the wave a little bit so you can zone out Clinks more effectively once sentries come online? Do you think that's kind of what they need to focus on right here? Obviously, we're seeing Clinks already doing some rotation back to the base and now heading back to the lane specifically so that he can try to stay on the lane, and even if he has to take a little bit of harassment for it. And for that reason, he is doing better than as experience-wise compared to the Darkseer. But I do think that the Radiant could be more active here. DotaBro could be trying to zone him out more effectively.
Yeah, I mean, I think once they get sentries, they should start pulling it. But there's always the danger of him just... Well, he can jack the creeps either way. But I think it's a little bit easier to go and time your steals against just the Radiant creeps, rather than going and dealing with a blast. So until then, I feel like they should just probably be blasting them off. But what they really need to do is buy sentries. It looks like there's a dust on the way for the Disruptor, but that's slightly more aggressive than just, again, grabbing sentries.
Yeah,
it's a matter of preference.
It won't have too much permanence on the lane, but if they can get their stuns off in the right position there and make sure that he doesn't get the benefit of the Skeleton Walk's movement speed through the kinetic field, I definitely think that it could be what they're looking for there. But yeah, like you said, it does have its limitations, especially when they want to try to control the lane for 3 minutes or more. But one thing I got to mention is Martin on the bottom lane was about to pick up a nice illusion rune, but Lina, who has been continuously stacking up these ancients, was able to deny it right under his hooves. So that makes sure that he won't be able to sustain as effectively, and that requires him to use the courier that much more often. They only just recently got that to flying status, so as you can see, there's actually a bunch of different items on it right now just for Martin, but more and more it's going to be different heroes that need it, like the Sven, picking up some early items beyond just the power treads.
Yeah, I mean, this is actually a really dangerous deck. When you're going and playing against a Magnus and a Sven, I'm pretty surprised they've decided to go and stack their Ancients. If they lose one fight, that's like, they're going to lose an additional 1,000 gold right there. And it looks like with that smoke gang going on mid, I'm not sure if they know the Darkseer is there as well. This is, unless this Magnus,
they must now. Smoked.
Yeah, they've got to see him.
Yeah, the smoke has expired, so pretty much they realized that they're not going to be able to get too much out of this. They had good flanking position on Martin, but Darkseer in the jungle just happened to scare them off of the chase, and now they're just looking to the south, where, yeah, the Imprive does have that Surge available. So Surge and Lightstriker Wave will be on the Imprive, but he will be able to get out after that Surge. However, on the mid, they were able to bring down the Nyx Assassin for the first blood, so that was really, really nice for him. So I'm assuming he just got to skewer back towards the tower, or...
No, he just mistimed. He tried to go and bait out the Shockwave and Spike Carapace it, but he just mistimed it, and he ate the Shockwave, and then he just got, smacked around a couple times.
Fair enough. So that, yes, that'll definitely put some points on the board there. Obviously, they were looking for a little bit of aggression on the mid lane, but unfortunately, those reinforcements never came. They kind of distracted a little bit by that very tanky Darkseer, and he was able to walk away with his life. Can't say the same for Nyx, as it's kind of really hard to juke out the Spike Carapace there. We do see Nyx coming on in with that Vendetta already active. Of course, the power of a solo mid Nyx is you will get that experience advantage really quickly. Ultimate comes on through, but they do put off the kinetic field as well as Thundering Strikes, pop off the dust, only to see the Nyx Assassin right behind him trying to bring down Witcher right now, but Markloff is the one on low life, 26 HP, needs one more right click, same for Witcher, and they're both going to fall. So Clinks and the Disruptor both falling there, and Inmate's going to pick up another kill, or just his first kill of the game, which he needs to keep on going. He needs to actually have a little bit of nice Carapace. Oh my gosh, Fear of C on 13 HP. Because of that Carapace. That was so good, well timed. If only it had actually just been charged a little bit longer, it would have actually killed him. But anyways, Inmate starting off with one kill on the board. He needs to snowball. He needs to get an early game advantage. But one nice thing is on the bottom lane, it's going to be the Luna that's just farming up non-stop, sitting at 44 CS. Going to actually look for a BKB rush, and that's going to allow her to have a lot of sustainability, whether it's magic damage. But we do see on the top there's his dive. They had some kind of detection presumably, or they just knew he was in that position. Either way, skewering him up, but they're not going to be able to follow on through beyond that. Yeah,
I mean, it's just that they had the sentry up, but I think the Disruptor still has one dust, a little bit too far back to really use it, and just, trying to see if they get lucky. If he does get hit by the skewer, the RP will be enough to go and bring him down. So fishing, I suppose would be the term, but you know, it's nothing really lost. However, we're really seeing that the Magnus, you know, between picking up that first blood, he's far ahead of the Nyx Assassin, who has not even finished his Arcane Boots, with Magnus being, you know, not that far ahead actually, with just 1 on top of that. But it really comes down to how quickly this Magnus will get his Blink. Once he gets that Blink Dagger, it's going to be very difficult for the Dire to fight. Even with Luna's BKB, it's not going to do much to stop it, and just, you know, it's a little bit too much presence. They need to get something going between this Nyx, between this Clinks, before the Magnus starts steamrolling with the Sven and the Illuminate.
Sure enough. Like I said, they're kind of weak in the lanes. That is DotaBro's team lineup, but as soon as they get in the team fight, getting a Vacuum into a Reverse Polarity, a Stormbolt, and then a Disruptor, Kinetic Field plus Static Storm, that's a lot of disabled that really I don't think the Dire lineup in general is durable enough to deal with, but we do see Inmate flanking in, going to get a lot of damage on Keep It Light, use that Mana Burn early, not going to be able to do too much more beyond that. Break the Death Please is getting a 1 versus 1 against Sven, and yeah, Ruby's going to take a fall. Up back towards the Disruptor though, he gets finished off by Markoloff coming in with the flank. Once that Impale comes on out, and now looking for more, the Vendetta has popped, as well as the Skeleton Walk. They can close the distance here with this Lucent Beam, and they will get the kill for sure. It's going to go to Inmate, and that is going to put, another kill on the board. So yeah, they did bring down the Rubik. That is 1 support kill, but compared to the fact that they were able to bring down a support and their hard carry, it's definitely going to be a favorable exchange for Team Crab.
Yeah, I mean, they were also able to get a double kill on that Clinks, and Clinks is a hero that really wants to snowball, and this game, you know, he just was not able to get anything really going. He died once, he wasn't really getting good farm, the levels were fine, but just, you know, without that Orchid, he's really not the same hero. It looks like it will also be a straight Orchid rush, saving up for that first Oblivion Staff without going for any smaller items like the Aquila or Treads. So we'll see how effective he's able to make that in the mid-game.
Yeah, that'll be interesting, because right now he is only sitting at 28 CS, but if he does go for the big Orchid instead of going for the drums, that means, or sorry, for the treads, that will allow him to just have so much gank potential, specifically, in my mind, on the Darkseer, who is one hero that generally wouldn't be gankable. Just based on the fact that he does have rank 2 Surge already. It's so hard to bring him down, but if you do silence him up and you have at least one other person helping you out, you can easily bring the opposition down there. And Imprive is going to try to get some CS on the neutrals, but unfortunately, 2 Mud Golems, you're pretty much just going to end up Ion Shelling down 1 Centaur, and that's not going to give him the catch-up that he really needs. So once that Orchid does come out, there's a number of heroes, all the supports are susceptible to getting soloed out, but also it does enable the option to actually bring down the Darkseer, which would normally be something that would be impossible without it.
Yeah, on the top lane it looks like Magnus is trying to get something going, but you know, oh my god, the Clinks is actually out of mana for his Skeleton Walk.
But he pops off the Magic Stick. Do they have detection? The Dust is in range, just barely. They're going to get enough damage with the Thundering Strikes and right clicks to bring down Markoloff right here, and that is going to set them up for a tier 1 tower push, but meanwhile Luna has been pushing a lot of pressure on the tower, now searching, finding Darkseer out. Does Lucent Beam come? Light Striker Ray just a little bit too slow. Drunken taking a lot of damage from the tower, salves out, 3 HP, just barely popping off the healing salve to make sure he doesn't fall to the Radiant right there. Same thing with Break the Dusk, he has to fall back from that position, but now they're going to take the tier 1 with this Siege Creep intact. They're going to be able to push it down pretty aggressively. The question is, who's going to get these last hits? Are the carries going to get it? Sven does pick up the last hit on the tier 1, and Luna does on the other, so both of them getting a lot of gold for their troubles, but I think Luna's going to get a bigger item out of it pretty quickly. The BKB will be coming forth very soon for her, whereas Sven is actually opting for a Mask of Madness, which is a great item on Sven, don't get me wrong, but with the disables, the Telekinesis, Impale, Carapace, all this stuff, it's really easy for him to get stunned out and actually take more damage from the 30% amplification of Mask of Madness than he's going to be lifestealing up.
Yeah, I mean, he's basically hoping that, you know, or rather relying on the fact that his Magnus and the Darkseer will set him up with, you know, oh, it looks like they're trying to go on top lane, but I don't think they'll be able to pick up the Clinks this time.
No.
But he's just kind of relying on the fact that, you know, he's only going to be going into favorable engagements. And if they just play in this kind of clumped up lineup, and this Magnus does pick up a blink, and he's, you know, just about 500 gold away now, it's not unreasonable to assume that will happen. But if, you know, you gotta be careful. You can't be just farming Ancients, and it looks like Nyx. Yeah. So...
Yep, so Nyx is going to be able to do a lot of damage to Disruptor, but it's going to be Markoloff that picks him off in the end. Nice double stun coming out, and it looks like that Mike Licious might be able to finish the job here. Looking at Markoloff now, the Nyx buys back into the fray, but the Eclipse pops out. A lot of damage coming on down. Will be able to bring down the Darkseer. Now Light Strike Ray misses on Sven, unfortunately, so he still has that Mask, just the God Strength doing a lot of damage right here, but now Sven is all by himself. The Telekinesis will not be off cooldown fast enough. Trying to save the Luna. The Impale will come out, and he will survive because of it. Mana Burn and a little bit more damage to finish the job. Klink's picking up that kill. So again, DotaBro going so aggressive and almost locking some people down, but without popping off that reverse polarity, Magnus really couldn't make anything happen there, and of course the Sven just had to fall back as his supports kind of fell by the wayside there.
Yeah, I mean, just a little bit tricky on that fight. It was very close, you know. If the cooldowns were just about 10 seconds differently, it would have, you know, completely changed the fate of that fight. Looks like Sven gonna die in the mid lane, though.
Yeah, just too much damage. I mean, he does have nice move speed with the Warcry, but doesn't pop it off in time, surprisingly. So he's just going to be right-clicked on down, and an inmate's going to pop off the Vendetta to possibly go aggressive onto Witcher right now, but we'll have to see. If he did go into vision a little bit, they know he's stalking up his prey. The question is, will he go aggressive in this position? Now visible, will they glimpse him back in? They pop off the dust. They're looking for the glimpse to put him right in this spot here. Nice little bit of disconnect field, but he does take a lot of damage. Will it be enough to bring him down? Pops off the magic wand, and that's going to be the death of Inmate right there. Two very, very low HP supports right in front of his eyes, but neither one being a kill that he can claim. So going to the grave with nothing intact. I mean, he did spend a lot of money on that buyback right off the bat, 450, and now they're going to lose the tier 1 tower. So I gotta say, that's a lot of gold momentum in favor of DotaBro right here.
Yeah, on the other hand, though, you have a Klink that's basically been free farming this entire time, and, you know, he's not being matched by the Darkseer. Also, Darkseer is just going to be a little bit less impactful. Going for that mechanism, which, don't get me wrong, is going to be very, very useful, especially if they're kind of playing this, you know, 5-man push style. They need that mechanism quickly, but this Klink is just about 700 gold away from his Orchid now, and once he gets that, it's going to be very, very difficult to be a hero like this Coddle or this Disruptor, because he can just go and solo kill them very easily. Also, Klink is able to kind of play this Broodmother style hero, where he will just sit top lane and force you to bring like 1 or 2 heroes to deal with him. And without 5 heroes, the Radiant lineup just isn't as strong. They need everyone there to kind of win those fights against this Luna who's got
back on bottom. We do see a reverse polarity popped off on the Nyx, but it's not going to be enough right here. A little bit of vacuum. Dosi Doan right here. They want to be able to bring down the Nyx, but they can't see him for the time being. Impriv juking as best he can. Now he's going to TP on out. The dust has been popped off. The Keeper Light will actually be killed off by the Lina after that damage came on through, but now Nyx is in pursuit of Martin. Will take a lot of damage from that shockwave, and actually will take a fall at the last second from Magnus. I'm not sure what did the damage after that shockwave, maybe just a right click, but either way, Lina pops off the Laguna Blade to secure the kill there, but man, that was so close for a kill on Darkseer. There was actually a point where he Iron Shelled himself, which allowed Nyx to Carapace, rank 4, get the max duration of 2.4 second stun on the Darkseer, and if he had popped off the Vendetta right then and there, he could have gotten the kill, but hesitated a little bit, and that ended up being a little bit longer chase than he intended, which ended up resulting in, of course, his death.
Meanwhile, we just see Klink sit top and get another tower, and I think this is going to be one of the stories of the game, especially now that he has a finished Orchid. He doesn't need to leave top lane. He can force the enemy to come to him, and you know, we saw that big fight engagement bot lane. They needed all of the heroes there, and they weren't able to even do much. They needed, on top of what they had, they still needed the Sven, who was busy farming. I feel that the Radiant lineup needs to go and force objectives right now. They have that Blink Dagger, they have a level 2 reverse polarity. In 40 seconds that will be back up. They have a Sven with Mask of Madness, so he's dishing out a ton of damage right now. But unless they get all of these critical elements together, they don't do anything. Like, a Coddle alone doesn't do anything. A Disruptor alone doesn't do anything, you know? Magnus isn't going to be dishing out the damage.
And now we
mid lane.
Oh, actually, didn't catch that there. Orchid had been finished, so quick, easy kill on the support, not too surprising whatsoever. Just gets that damage amplification as well as silence, and there's very little you can do if he's in the right position to strafe up and burst somebody down. Meanwhile, we do see the Dire farming up the Ancients very aggressively. The European managers really want to bring down these stacks and get a lot of farm on Luna, and with rank 2 Moonglaves, it's not going to be too big of an issue, but they have to do it very gradually. They can't just commit a large period of time to it because, of course, there's another game, the rest of the game is going on across the battlefield, and they have to contribute to that quite a bit as well. But the fact of the matter is, if they can acquire those Ancients, they'll have so much farm on Luna that it'll be hard to contest her. Now she has BKB, albeit the Magnus ultimate will pierce right on through that, but from there they have to dish out a lot of physical damage, and I think that's mostly why the Sven opted for the Mask of Madness. Mikey Licious will be able to dish out a ton with that God Strength active, especially if he gets it towards level 11 anytime soon. But yeah, that's just them trying to put out the damage pressure from this Luna, who's going to get more and more beefy as time goes by. Actually opting for a drum at this stage in the game. Do you feel that's something that the supports should have been able to handle, or do you think it's going to be giving her the durability she's looking for?
I mean, the supports they're really, really poor right now. You know, Lena's just about to pick up Arcane Boots. The Sven, you know, doesn't even have his, just sitting on a wand. They've gone and just kind of babysat this Luna, the Luna, for a very long time. So I just don't think they'll be able to pick it up. And they want that additional move speed, you know, to go and deal with the heroes on the Radiant lineup. Even though they're playing against a Surge and a Skewer, every little bit helps in terms of positioning. I think the greatest thing coming from this ancient stack is we're seeing the levels come down on the Lina and the Rubik. I remember about 4 minutes ago they were just sitting they were still at level 4. So just being able to pick up 3 levels in pretty quick succession, they're gonna the Lina might even hit 8 or 9 after this. And that's going to be really good. Spike Carapace?
Yep, it's going to be Carapacing up on the Keeper Light. He's dropping down fast, but there's just too many opponents, and of course that Sentry Ward that they may or may not know is available that will make sure that there's not going to be an opportunity for counter initiation. I'm curious in this engagement right here, if there's going to be a Magnus Blink, and he pops off the Polarity, the question is who's going to have the faster reflexes. Actually, we do see this engage. There's a Polarity on 3. The Orchid did not come out, and instead there's just too much damage for them to deal with. They pop off the Eclipse, and it will bring down most likely the Sven. No, BKB battle, and it looks like Mikey might fall to the tower. He indeed does. Now, Inmate trying to do what damage he can. The Carapace still available. Pops it off on just about everybody. Glimpsing back in Markaloff underneath the Sentry Ward, but they're going to burn him down with the Illuminate. So, it's really, really nice engagement for the Radiant, and they're going to try to pursue on Inmate. The question is, will they be able to finish the job? I don't think so, but they do have a lot of opportunity to pursue with that vacuum coming back in. Yeah, the Ion Shell is going to be able to obliterate him. He does stun up everybody. Actually, Witcher probably falling to the tower right here. No, they are able to de-aggro it and send it back the other direction so Martin can tank that up. But it's buyback TP comes on in from the Nyx Assassin and from Rubik, now trying to go in and finish the job that they started, but unfortunately they're all going to be able to fall back from there. And yeah, DotaBro able to get all 5 heroes at one point in time in the grave in that engagement. So really, really nice for them. Very effective initiation with the Stormbolt into the reverse polarity, and that's exactly what they needed.
Yeah, I mean, there we just kind of see the death ball style play that the Radiant is capable of, and that wasn't even their perfect fight. The Magnus actually missed his skewer, but great play from the Disruptor. Went and landed the silence on the key heroes on the Dire lineup, and they were still able to win. Imagine if that fight wasn't under the Dire tower. They would have been easily able to pick off those heroes, not being nearly as afraid of the Clinks, and get a tower for free, maybe even going into a Roshan. So at this point, with a suboptimal fight, after losing almost every fight for the early game, the Radiant is still able to clean up. That's the kind of fear that a Magnus Sven is able to go and put into a lineup.
Yeah, and going right before that fight, I was going to talk about kind of the hairpin reflexes of who can initiate first appropriately. One thing I was thinking of there is if Magnus tries to blink in and pop that Polarity, then there is a slight cast time that I believe that Markaloff on the Clinks could actually Orchid him and prevent him from popping out that ultimate, putting him in a really dangerous position because he has a decent armor and health pool, but the fact of the matter is, if he can't cast the spells, get his disables off, he can get locked down very hardcore. So I was curious to see if there was an opportunity for Markaloff to show those Counter-Strike reflexes, just get that quick Orchid off right mid-ultimate, and kind of prevent that, but the Stormbolt makes that a null factor. Starting off with the stun in the first place, it's not, you don't even really need that kind of initiation. Now Darkseer taking a lot of damage right here. The Polarity comes through again, skewering only Nyx Assassin. Everybody grouped up inside the vacuum, inside the Static Storm, and now they're going to be doing a lot of damage. Unfortunately, the Illuminate did not hit on everybody. It would have been like an ultra kill for the Keeper Light, but a little bit out of range. Break Death Please on low life, pops off that Telekinesis, but going to get dropped down by a stun in the end. Now popping off his ultimate, going to do one quick right click to Lina to burn her down, but everybody else is going to get out, just limp away from the fight. Luna and as well as the Nyx Assassin just going to walk away from that, but of course it is free kills and they're going to be happy for that. Now Inmate trying to bring down Witcher to try to put a few points on the board, instead going to take a lot of damage right here with that blink, almost finishing it, and with that skewer should be right clicking him down to finishing the job. Haste Rune not fast enough for him, and he's going to get completely annihilated. They're going to look for a tier 2 as a result.
Yeah, I mean, this Nyx is really just showing that after going and dying and buying out a few times, he's just not as effective as he'd like to be. We don't see a dagging. We're not seeing any progression to a blink dagger that G likes to do. So, it looks like the Orchid... not quite able to get it off. Didn't get the Orchid off immediately, and I think he's actually going to get away.
Yeah, only one auto attack going to come on through, even with the Orchid pop. Now double stun coming on both of them, vacuumed up, going to skewer at least Markaloff in, out of the kinetic field, but still doing a lot of right-click damage. Going to finish off Markaloff. Looking for Luna, had popped off that Eclipse, not picking up any kills as a result of it, though. Now they just need a couple more right-clicks. They don't have any more stuns, but they finish it off with just the Shockwave. Now they're looking for more, but I don't think they're going to be able to go beyond this with their current state of health and mana. They've taken a lot of kills for their trouble, and they're just going to fall back from here. But let's take a look at the goal graph and the experience for that matter. Look how just completely rapidly it shot up and turned things around as soon as they started taking big fights. As soon as Martin started initiating with some really big polarities, catching the opponents off guard and kind of following up from there, we just see how powerful that kind of initiation really has made as a direct impact on this game.
Oh man, Blaze, he's only 900 away from a finished refresher. This is going to be maybe a 24-minute Magnus with blink refresher. It's going to get tremendously difficult. That kind of, 25, 35-minute timing is going to be so difficult for the Dire to hold off. They've lost their kind of mid-game advantage that they were hoping to get from the Nyx and the Clinks. Now they have to actually turtle it out until the Luna is going to be able to do enough damage to carry them. And I'm not sure if she's going to be able to in the face of, you know, a 5-second stun that goes through BK. Oh, sorry. A 7.5-second stun that goes through BKB.
Alright, which one are you referring to there?
I would be referring to the double.
Oh, the double, okay, so just adding those
yeah.
two together, yeah, that's gonna, of course, would be exactly what they're looking for to finish it off, and it looks like Witcher's gonna get picked off real quick by Markloff there, and so, yeah, that is just a lot of disables that, even with the BKB up, is really, she's not gonna get too much off the Eclipse. Of course, we'll continue being active despite the disables, but that's only so much damage you're gonna be facing, and we do have a quick break the desks, please, has probably broken his desktop, and so has to be real quick in reconnecting on in when he gets a chance to, but in the meantime, that just kind of gives us a chance to break down a little bit kind of where we're progressing in the game so far. We do see that the Drum of Endurance is going to be up on the Luna soon, but I'm not sure, like I said, if that's going to be the game changer they're looking for. It doesn't really dramatically increase her damage output. The best thing I would say is that it gives them a little bit of mobility. If appropriately popping on the drums gives them that 10% movement speed boost temporarily. That will enable them to actually be able to be mobile, avoid getting caught out of position, that kind of thing. They see the Magnus moving in just a little bit, have some long-range wards or something like that, even on the lane. Then they can actually see that kind of initiation coming just a little bit in advance, and if they spread out just slightly with a little bit of a speed boost, it will of course help them try to avoid that really nasty combo of the reverse polarity and the vacuum. But when you have those kind of joke bands, the Pudge, the Sniper coming out, this is the kind of lineup you have to be expecting, and honestly I didn't think the Disruptor would be that great of a pick in the laning phase, but it turned out to be not a non-factor. Going up against the Clinks, sure they didn't bring him down very often, but now in the team fights we saw how amazingly powerful that Static Storm plus Kinetic Field is, and the only way I can see the Dire really coming ahead in this is they have to start utilizing their gank-oriented lineup, finding pickoffs in the jungle with Luna's Eclipse, with Clinks' Orchid, with Nyx Assassin's Vendetta. Factors like that will allow them to do a lot of really break apart their team fight so that they're all staggered out, they're not able to group it together. But as 5, DotaBro kind of feels unstoppable right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be very difficult for them to go for pickers. Is he going to pop the... No. I think Sven could have probably forced a BKB usage there, just popping his Mask of Madness and running in, but without seeing the rest of the entire team on the map, choosing to play it a little bit safe. But, yeah, I think that it's just going to be very difficult, because this Luna expected, you know, to have very powerful allies at this stage of the game, and she just doesn't. So, like, these items are actually not, you know, going to be enough for her to do the kind of damage she needs to do. And she doesn't even have something like, what is it, a Helm of the Dominator, help her clear this...
Ooh, big polarity coming in and skewering them back towards the tier 2, knocking them on that, and with the Shockwave, Markloff on such low life, won't be glimpsed back in though. It's just going to be the Nyx Assassin that will pay the price, but Markloff in a very dicey spot right here is going to try to go for a TP inside the trees. Will they find him out? They don't get vision on him as it's nighttime, and he will actually evade to safety. Now the question is how much time they spend trying to chase him down and find out where he wandered off to.
Well, it looks like they're just content to go and farm it up instead. You know, trading a Nyx, who is not going to be that effective, a level 12 Nyx, for a Sven's 10-second BKB charge, as strange as that sounds, I don't know if that's the worst, because this Nyx is going to be up in 16 seconds, and it's not like he's going to have really any major item progression until, you know, I think it's beyond Dagon time, right? So maybe he'll go and pick up, I know G on LGD Int likes to go for the Blink Dagger Blade Mail build. We might see something like that. We might see a Necrobook follow-up. But these aren't big items, and I think if the Sven went for that 10-second BKB at an actual objective like a Roshan or, you know, a bigger team fight, it would have been much more effective.
I see what you're saying there, but nevertheless, it is a kill on the board. It's, I mean, 1/18 of their gold income in that sense there. So, yeah, you have to use the charges eventually, and he did have to pop it off in that. So I see what you're saying long term, but nevertheless, your hero, your core hero, your Nyx Assassin, I mean, although he's not playing core in this sense that he is only currently sitting at 3, 7, and 7, and we've already iterated on the fact that he really needs to snowball and have a level advantage in order to really be played to his potential. The fact of the matter is he's still dropping down. If they don't have that as a core hero, they're putting all of their potential on Luna, and that's all just a big burden to carry, even if she is going to be able to farm up all these Ancients here.
Yeah, I think what the best game plan for the Dire at this point is just kind of go and split push using the Clinks to go and farm one lane, you know, just have him play very safely, and it looks like he's actually going for BKB, which I think is the perfect item. And on the other hand, you know, only have very good engagements with the rest of your lineup. Just have everyone following and watching the Luna farm, and when they go and initiate, you know, just try to pick one off very quickly with that Nyx, with that Luna burst. It's going to be very difficult for them to play it out that way, but I don't see any other way they can come back. They need to go and get farm on, you know, both the Klinks and the Luna, and just not take a fight.
Radiant's mid tower.
It doesn't look like Radiant's going to allow them to do that, though. Kind of pressuring high ground right now.
But two Dire on the mid are putting a lot of pressure on the tier 2 tower, so they will get that, but unfortunately they only have one fortification available, and so that tier 3 will be taking quite a bit of damage pressure for the time being. The question is when they're going to try to pop it off. Just Fade Bolting to kind of set them up for the fight, but that refresher is up. He has a full magic wand. If he didn't have a full magic wand, I'd say he does not have sufficient mana, but popping off 2 arcane boots with that wand, I gotta say he will be able to pop off the second polarity if that's what he intends to do here. So that is a lot of potential, of course, and it looks like they might just be opting for Roshan, because if Magnus stays on out, there's really not a position they can't contest. But oh, that's pretty big. Luna did not finish that. Took about half the creeps there, so at least got something out of it, but nevertheless, it's free money going into Martin's pocket right there. Now the initiation comes out through. Starting off, there is some damage on Darkseer, but really just not able to lock down too much other than bring down his mana. The Eclipse comes on out, though. Will be able to finish him off. The kinetic field had gone down on Markaloff, so it's just going to be a pick-off of 2 different heroes. Markaloff finishing off the Disruptor, and then, of course, the Darkseer being picked off by everybody else. But, yeah, that is pretty much all they could get out of that. They were looking for a little bit more. They were looking for a 5v5 that they could actually get the real initiation on. But now, actually, Mikey in a weird position right here. Dodges out the Impale. Now popping off the Stormbolt before the Carapace comes out. It's actually on cooldown with the BKB. With that God's Strength, doing a lot of damage potential. Going for the Skewer. Polarity will only hit 1 if he goes for it. So Martin not going to, indeed, just gets Telekinesis, Light Strike Array. Now they're going to do some damage on him instead. And he's popping off that Polarity, but gets stunned out by the Lucent Beam. Pops off the first one. Pops off the Refresher, but he's silenced up by the Orchid. And there's no hope for him. He's just going in by himself in that position there. And I gotta say, I think that was started off by Mikey. Popping off the God's Strength, committing his BKB. All those factors really put Martin in a position where he felt very, very compelled to initiate, to make something of it, but obviously nothing came except for death. And now the Roshan, first Roshan of the game, is going to go to the Dire and presumably Luna for that Aegis the Immortal.
Yeah, I mean, the Radiant just kind of gave Dire a bone throw there. Feeding them kills they really needed them, and you know, those kind of engagements are where the Dire lineup really works. They have great heroes for single target pickoffs between the Nyx, Lina, Klinks, but when it comes to a large-scale team fight, you know, while these are useful heroes, especially the Rubik and the Lina, it's only the Luna that's going to be able to put out most of the damage. Right now, the Luna doesn't have that kind of damage.
Yeah, he's not going to be able to do too much uphill. If it was on flat ground away from the base, that probably would have been a kill, but just not enough. So yeah, he's just roaming around, and the thing is, they're not contesting him. Looking at the detection on the Radiant right now, they have 1 sentry on Witcher, who the second he crosses eyes with Klinks is just going to get completely obliterated. So they have to go as a pack and be constantly afraid. But we see the aggressive wards coming out of the Dire right here in the middle of their jungle, down towards that good Roshan ward. I mean, all those factors come into play that they can gank up wherever and whenever they want. And we do see Nyx kind of stalking up on Darkseer, who, I gotta say, that 4-second cooldown on Mana Burn is very, very effective against a hero like DS. Starting off that Impale, following up 355 damage nuke in both mana and health. I mean, that's insane. And oh, big Carapace on the Ion Shell, popping off another Mana Burn. He's down to 76. He does have the Soul Ring, but really, what more can he do? He's getting flanked up by Markaloff, and he's gonna get obliterated right here with the Orchid coming out. Yeah, just really, really nice play by Inmate, and a little bit of a mistake by Improve. Sticking around that long in that kind of position, it's just impossible to consider yourself safe in that kind of spot.
Right. Just playing a little... Normally when you play Darkseer, you just expect that you're invincible because you can just run around the map, zoom, zoom. But between the Nyx Assassin and just the Orchid, I don't think he's safe if he's going and crossing the river. Again, they've not contested this Klinks at all. Ever since the laning phase, he's kind of been able to be kind of uninhibited, and he's picking up a lot of the slack from the rest of the team, giving his allies space to farm by being a constant threat. The Keeper of the Light, the Disruptor, they can't be farming alone. They can't be getting those easy levels. So you always have a pretty good idea of where the enemy is. And that goes and clears a lot of space for the Luna to farm. She has picked up a Yasha now, going for that Manta, I'm going to presume. And once she gets that, the amount of DPS that's going to come out in team fights is going to be tremendously higher, just due to the way that glaives work.
Yeah. And as things were going with those 2 team fights in a row back-to-back for DotaBro, I had to say that I really thought they had the real advantage going on into the rest of the game, that they easily could pull it out as long as they kept on doing what they were doing. But in this, it's kind of been Team Crab coming back and playing their style of game, their gank-tastic, just destructive style there, where they can actually find people out in the open, pick them off, and just really punish the mistakes that are made by anybody on DotaBro here. So with that, we see the gold and experience actually swinging back to 0 on both. So, and actually a little bit in the negative sense, favoring towards the European managers team. So that means that they, of course, are back in the swing of things now. Of course, there is a level 17 Magnus with a refresher, which is always a wild card. If he can initiate properly, there's no team fight that the Dire can win. But nevertheless, they are swinging back as far as, like you said, getting a little bit more breathing room. Luna moving up her CS to 122. Markelov actually sitting at 156, so playing almost a number 1 in that sense. But that's mostly because he's been doing what he needs to, staying by himself on this off lane here, allowing him to push out towers, put a little pressure on the lane, and like I said, not go for a 5v5, because that's not a fight you can win.
Yeah, I think, while there is definitely a gold advantage in the Dire's favor, it's not as relevant right now. It's just a small gold advantage, and it basically comes down to the fact that on the Radiant lineup, the gold is very, what's the word I'm looking for? It's on only, basically 2 heroes. The Magnus has a lot, the Sven has a lot, and to an extent, actually no, the Dark hero has quite a bit of gold as well. But those are the only heroes they need to have farm. So they're doing fine. The Disruptor doesn't, once he gets level 11, which I think they should really try to feed him, because that Static Storm is tremendous. Is there going to be a pickoff? Is Klink's going for the Sven?
He is looking for him, but the BKB pops off, nullifying that silence, going in for a lot of damage right here. He actually pulls him away from the Sven. Not sure if that's the right course of action. With that BKB pop, I think the auto attacks is really all they can get in, but one quick right click from Sven. A little bit more is all they need. He pops off the Skeleton Walk. Is it fast enough? They put the sentry up on the high ground, but he doesn't juke to the east. He goes to the north, and Markelov will be able to barely escape with his life. And I gotta say, Martin on that skewer, not the best course of action there, pulling him away from your Sven and your primary DPS there.
Yeah, I mean, I would have almost recommended just committing in reverse polarity to make sure he dies, because once that Klinks is down, they can just go get top tower, for example. They just have time where they can farm they can go farm neutrals with their supports to go and get them a few more levels, a little bit more experience. That Klinks is basically the threat coming from the Dire lineup right now.
I mean, net worth. I mean, look at that right there, 13.8k. He's got a lesser crit in the bank. I'm not sure why he hasn't quarried it just yet, but the fact of the matter is he is by far the most threat in this scenario, where Impriv is finding himself again on the northwest, up against, what do you know, a Klinks and a Nyx. So quick stun, Impale is all they're looking for. They're not going to get it, though. Will they be able to get the Carapace? He has no Iron Shell, so not enough damage. Will be able to survive in the fountain, healing up, meching just to make sure of it. But yeah, unfortunately, missing that Impale allowed him to just knew what the position he was in and decided, okay, I'll just TP on out. Nothing you can really do about it since Iron Shield was not active, and so for once he will be able to escape and secure and make sure that he's not dying too often, as he is actually sitting at 0-3 and 8 right now.
Yeah, it's been a slightly rough game for the Darks here, but he's definitely pulled his weight in those team fights. That mid-team fight where he vacuumed everyone into that kinetic field Static Storm was absolutely clutch. They almost just ultra killed right there, but just slight amounts of miscommunication, and I think that's just what you see. The difference between these are all very talented players on the Radiant lineup, and same with the Dire, but the difference between this kind of team and an actual pro team is the amount of practice they have together. And with that, I've got to say it's a little bit harder to play this kind of team fight oriented lineup when you've not played with these other players a lot, Any slight gaps in miscommunication, like at the Roche fight where Mikey popped his BKB but was just trying to get one pick and get out, the Magnus thought that he was committing to the fight. Those kind of things, when they break down, it's very difficult. In that sense, it's a lot easier to kind of play a gank lineup, because you're just going for pickoffs. And that translates a little bit better to pub level play.
Exactly. I completely agree with that sentiment there. And yeah, it's been pretty much what we're looking at. Of course, they haven't practiced very much, maybe a week or so tops. So generally speaking, they're just not those kinds of individuals that coordinate more than on a pub level. So they know each other personally, kind of have a little bit of possibly synergy in their workplace. But as far as on the battlefield, it's a completely different story. And of course, it's much more difficult when you don't have that coordination, no matter how good your individual skill level is. But we do see Luna going to be able to take down this tier 2 tower by herself, no contest whatsoever, and kind of fearless in that. Like, they have a lot of map presence, don't get me wrong. They have a bunch of vision in the jungle. Actually, just looking at the Dire vision in general, they have good vision up towards the high ground, towards the Radiant Ancients, and they have it in the middle of the Dire jungle. But the position Luna was in, she could have easily gotten blinked on by Martin right there, and surprisingly that just didn't come out because they weren't ready to react to that. I guess they just didn't expect that she'd be that gutsy all by herself there.
Yeah, I mean, they've just got to assume that she's got at least 3 behind her, and maybe even a Nyx. Also, look at this. The Dire team is still going and stacking for the Luna. You know, going missing it by a little bit there with the new stack timing. But oh, it looks like they think there's a ward. No, you just messed it up, guys. It's okay. But they're still going and stacking, trying to get the Luna even more and more farm. And again, like, the Rubik still doesn't have 11. The Luna just sorry, she's almost 12 now. But if they go and get some more stacks and get a little bit more farm on these supports, they're going to be far more effective in the middle of the game. With the cast time on the reverse polarity, on the second reverse polarity, it's actually not that difficult to steal if he does not catch the Rubik. So they need to be very, very careful on the Radiant lineup. I think once this Sven gets his greater crit, which he's very close to, they should try to end the game.
That's one question I gotta ask you. Break the dust, please. I know he's had a lot of pressure on him, but have you seen him spell steal and use anything, really? I actually almost forgot there was a Rubik in the game in the sense that there have been no big steals, and honestly, I haven't even seen minor ones.
Yeah, no, he's still a vacuum a couple times, and it was fairly effective. He's still skewer once to keep his Luna alive. You know, it's not been any of those, like, huge teamfight spells. He's not being able to get a Stormbolt, for example, which I feel, you know, he's prioritizing getting kind of the battle rearrangement spells, I guess you could call them. And it's not as flashy, but he's definitely, you know, pulling his weight. Maybe not completely changing the flow of the game, but very effective in teamfights nonetheless.
Fair enough. So we are seeing Sven going for that greater crit, looking for the Daedalus, Parisidokianum, however you want to pronounce it or describe it. It has a lot of DPS potential, pretty much going for a 240% crit chance. If you can get one of those off with his Great Cleave Up, with Empower active, in any kind of a big team fight clustered together, that is going to be a world of damage that can just completely annihilate even heroes like Luna, who are currently sitting at 17 armor. It's not going to matter too much at all if it's going to be the cleave that you're looking at there, and of course, just even if she physically DPS is down, it's still a very big number right off the bat. But Impale does go out onto Mikey, just trying to push him off a little bit, taking a bit of damage pressure, but he pops off the Warcry, which is a decent cooldown. They're going to pop off the mech and go for the pipe. They want to contest this, but again, Warcry is pretty big right here, so we're going to be looking at Martin really wants to initiate, looking for that blink opportunity, has a BKB too, and a Geometry Sight really wants to contest this right here. It's going to be a 5v5, breaking out. Sven pops off that BKB. Mask Madness, he is just trying to go in hardcore, but Nyx pops off his own BKB, and now Sven is on low life, doesn't have a Aegis or anything, so he's committed a lot right here. The BKB is popped off by Luna, pops off that Eclipse, one polarity on just Lena alone, one polarity on Rubik alone, but he steals it. He does have it available. Break the Dex, please. Wants to probably pop it off on the Darkseer, but really they're walking into, they got the Wall of Replica, that's nice, but if they can get one more disable onto Darkseer, they're going to be able to bring him down. They just need to close the distance, but that Surge, rank 4, so powerful. They get some high ground. The Mana Burn, he can't Surge. He needs the Soul Ring to get the Surge, and no, it's going to be a right click from Luna to finish the job there. So actually kind of completely butchered that team fight, and I gotta say that was Mikey being in such an aggressive position. Starting off, popping his BKB that early, Warcry as well, Mask of Madness. He was right in the middle of their base, and he wanted them to go on him. That's exactly what happened, but Team Crab didn't really fall for that like they expected them to. They kind of did it 1 by 1, 2 by 2. They didn't go in as 5, so there was no big polarity. In fact, I think Rubik still has his... did he die and buy back? He must have. There's no way he would have lost it in this period of time. So yeah, he must have died and bought back. But that's going to be...
Yeah, I mean, he definitely did die. So...
Okay, but anyways, one way or another, the fact is that it was single target polarities, which is obviously not the potential of that spell going forward, you know, trying to cluster everybody up, especially with Vacuum. We didn't see too much from the Static Storm, things like that. They spaced themselves out properly, and they positioned exactly as they needed to actually play that very effectively. Yeah,
I mean, the Magnus, I think he wasn't even going for a huge RP there, you know, he just slightly missed the Luna. And if he had, I feel like if you're going to get a single target RP, just get the Luna that's about to dive your team. So, but again, like, it basically came down to the fact that Mikey went in, his team didn't, you know, wasn't like exactly behind him, right? They didn't have the communication, you know, like, we're going to dive and try to pick this Nyx right now. And then after that, he's just in an awful position with a 5-second BKB. And the Clinks is going to go for him, but there's no Orchid, so I'm not sure...
Yeah. He knows he can BKB on out of it, so I mean, that's kind of a limitation. But looking to turn around, now the Orchid comes, and it's too late. He pops it off, too, so he wastes the cooldown, drops down the duration with that charge expired down to 5 seconds now. And yeah, Nyx didn't even have to pop off some Vendetta, just a quick little pick-off from Markelov alone, effectively, even though he did have plenty of backup. Not that the Sven would know any of that, but yeah, he was ready to bring him down, and now it looks like Inmate wants to put pressure onto Imprive, but he's just going to be able to walk away without having to worry about that.
I really like this BKB pickup from the Nyx here. Just, he needs to be able to walk through that kinetic field. That's really all it's about, you know? He needs to be able to cast his spells and deal with that kinetic field. And that just shows how strong Disruptor is. Yes, there's nothing a Disruptor can do to a BKB hero. He is actually useless for those 5 seconds when in the late game, where a carry pops their BKB. But he forces everyone on the team to get one just so you can fight. So really powerful hero in that aspect.
But we do see, just in general, the 15,000 experience advantage is really showing its presence here with a level 22, Clinks 19 and 18 on the Luna and Nyx respectively. So a lot of just level advantage, a lot of stats going that they can actually apply to the battlefield. Obviously a lot more health, a lot more right-click damage, those kind of things factoring in. We do see, again, Break the Desktop is going to disconnect on out, but we do see potential for Markaloff to actually initiate very effectively on this Disruptor. They do have a Sentry Ward, they could pop it down, and hopefully they're not stream cheating, but I might be describing his position right underneath it, since there is, the admin said we shouldn't do any delay, since it's mostly for fun, but yeah, they could easily catch out somebody somewhere, possibly. Anyways, yeah, so that's interesting. I'm not sure.
Really sorry for the caster?
I guess the caster has to wait. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm fine with it. I mean, this is a good game. I mean, this is pretty exciting. The fact that, like I said, the experience has a huge advantage on the Dire in general. They have tons of experience wrapped around, so they have a lot of level. They have a decent bit as far as gold goes, but the fact of the matter is that RP is still as chaotic as it ever has been. So they're looking for big team fights. They're looking for Darkseer wall, getting a pipe and back off. Kind of what they were doing when they were rushing the tier 3s, but the big thing they're factoring is now they're up against the Clinks. Actually, Clinks opens up on Disruptor. The mech comes out, but no, Orchid's going to finish the job and actually bring him down. Holy crap, he even finished off Darkseer before.
Oh my god.
That was so bad. I mean, like, not like bad as far as performance by anybody on any part,
yeah.
But did they say they were? They said sorry, ready.
Yeah, no, they said ready.
Even though Rubik's disconnected. I don't know, but even so, that was just such big burst damage and good crits. I mean, Clinks must have gotten like 4 crits in that string on Darkseer. It's just so much burst damage. Luna didn't even have to participate; she was there, but they really just went in with Inmate and Markaloff and able to just completely burst down the Disruptor and the Darkseer to follow. Looking for Sven a little bit, but the Warcry should allow him to get away if he wants to. Markaloff going in deep. He pops off all the damage. No Warcry, no armor buff for the Sven, and he's going to drop down now, dueling out with Magnus. He does pop off Polarity number 1. The Impale won't go, but he will get the right-click off, and all it is going to be Aegis sacrifice. Now people are going to drop down, and this could be a good game right here. Holy crap, they did a huge swing that I did not expect, but going in effectively 2 versus 3 and getting a kill on the 3 without a single casualty, and now diving the base like they are, Markaloff godlike spree. He is definitely the MVP in this sense, not only for the pressure he put out on top lane, but the kills that he just completely set up in this situation here. Really, really fortunate for the crits, but in general, popping off his BKB when he needed to, and I gotta say they were very well underestimated. Darkseer dueling out with Luna, and with his Wall of Replica, making at least 2 illusions, if not 3, that was actually pretty effective, but nevertheless, they have lost their mid-racks. Now looking for their top. I gotta say, this is just about a good game.
There's a little, casual flames coming out in the alt chat here. But I think, Clinks is definitely being the MVP in my opinion, because he's played so safe. Like, when you think of, oh wow, and now he's playing very, very aggressively, but I don't think they can punish the DR here. But, he's basically, like, being in the right positions. He's not gone for any, like, dangerous pickoffs. He's like, oh, there's a Disruptor. Okay, I'll go kill a Disruptor. Like, there's nothing, like, dangerous about his play. And he's just managed to go farm and pick up 17 kills without ever putting himself in danger. When you go and compare that to, and, like, I'm not saying this, like, in any bad manner. Mikey's made, like, maybe 3 mistakes this game. But if you go and compare that to the Sven's play, he's, like, in those critical team fights, he's gone in very aggressively in an unsafe way. And I think that, in the carry role, you need to go and be able to go and determine, at a glance, what you're going to be able to go and fight. And it looks like he just, wants to duel the tower there for a bit. So that's going to be just about it.
But yeah, I mean, the fact of the matter is he was able to get a lot of DPS time, and this kind of comes down a little bit to their lane support choices in my mind. The fact is that the kind of disable we were talking about, if they had like a Jakiro or went for, I'm trying to think of the other hero that we were talking about, but just kind of that AoE disable, AoE stun, they really didn't have that lockdown. So comparing that to Disruptor and Keep It Light, what can they do to a Clinks? They can send him away if he's not BKB'd up, but beyond that, the fact is that they don't have the silence, the movement impairment of the kinetic field. Actually, Divine Rapier on the ground. It's going to be picked up by the Disruptor at the very last second.
Easy,
so
got him.
How could this Disruptor have lost with the Divine Rapier? Seriously, man, what the heck is that?
I don't know, man. But I think, like, more than that, right? They just didn't buy sentries, right? They went for the dust, maybe 6 minutes in to go and kind of get a kill on the Clinks, but they didn't get sentries to go and deny him experience. And I think that's just a little bit sloppy play from the Radiant supports.
Someone's dropped.
But I think it was a good game overall. We saw some really clutch fights. One of those fights mid was, it reminded me why Magnus is such a good hero. And I was like, man, why doesn't this guy get drafted in pro games? But
because he gets banned out mostly.
Yeah, because he's banned. But I think mostly it just came down to the fact that, like, the Radiant needed to end the game, and just in maybe 2 team fights in a row, they weren't able to do it. There was a little bit of miscommunication. They all got picked. And that was enough for, the Clinks to start doing a lot of damage, the Luna to start, tanking up, doing a lot of damage. And it was just too much for them to overcome.
Sure enough. Yeah, I mean, I gotta say, like, when Clink started really doing damage, even before the Divine Rapier, he was just evaporating the opponents, and they really didn't have a response. So they didn't sentry him up early enough. He got, there was a position where there were like 3 different times where he was on top lane towards the Radiant base, and he had 4 people on him, and they couldn't lock him down. So just that, using that mobility, using the hero to its finest to get those pickoffs, and once that Orchid came out, the fact is the supports didn't get farmed up enough to get Ghost Scepters. And so they weren't able to negate that damage oncoming. Of course, the Orchid nullifying any way to disable him. So that meant that fact of the matter is he was able to dish out the damage he wanted to, get some quick and easy kills, and that ended the game with him for a 25-4. So 20 kills, 5 deaths, and 4 assists, as you can see on the scoreboard there. So that, I mean, just really set him up to do quick pickoffs over and over and over. And I gotta say, Mikey probably should manage his Warcry a little bit better. It's a really amazing cooldown of 16 armor for your entire team, so it is something that's more powerful. But in general, I think that DotaBro team had the right idea. It just needed to be put into practice in every single team fight rather than just 2 or 3.
Yeah, I mean, it just needed a little bit more polish. And when you play a late game situation and you have a team fight oriented lineup, it's just kind of hard to play. So it's hard to fault them, given the lineup they were going against, where a pick on any of their heroes would be, critical. If they don't have the disruptor, they can't actually go high ground anymore. It's difficult to play around that, and I think you got to give them credit for kind of coming back, because again, they lost every lane in the early game. The reason it went so late is because they had amazing team fights, for maybe minute 15 to 25. It just kind of fell off from there.
Sure enough. Well, in the end, it's going to be the Team Crab, aka European Managers, that proceeds on through. This is a best-of-1 double elimination series, so DotaBro team still has a second chance, but it's going to be fighting through, I think, like 6 more rounds in the losers bracket if they want to try to come out on top. So starting that off with the European Managers advancing right off the bat, and hopefully we'll see both of them in the near future, because they both played pretty well. They just need to refine a couple different things, but not sure exactly what team we're going to be drafting up or watching next, casting up next, but we'll let you know in chat as soon as possible. In the meantime, I am Blazecasting. This is Rainmaker. Thank you guys so much for tuning in thus far.
Cheers, guys. GG's.